Before there were maps, there were two worlds. The world you know, and the shining realm of Kaf, hidden just beyond it. A kingdom of fairies and giants and magic. On the night he was born, an emperor 1,000 miles away woke from a dream. A black crow that stole his crown, and a bright hawk that flew out of the west to win it back. And the wise men said, "That hawk is a child, and he will shake the thrones of the world." That same night, the fairies of Kaf carried the sleeping baby across the sky. They blessed him, and they touched his eyes, so that nothing hidden could ever hide from him again. His name was Hamza. He would become the bravest champion the world had ever seen. Strong as a lion, a warrior against 100 armies, a prince who lost his heart to a princess, and at his side, the cleverest trickster who ever lived. Amir, a thief of 1,000 disguises, and the truest friend a hero ever had. Together, they crossed burning deserts and enchanted mountains. They faced sorcerers and giants and dragons and the demon armies of Kaf. They saw wonders no eye had ever seen. Thrones that flew, cities of gold, gardens that bloomed in the dark, courage, magic, love, and laughter. One of the greatest stories ever told, carried for 1,000 years. And now, it is yours. This is the Dastan-e-Amir Hamza. Here is the trick that history plays upon the fortunate children. It lets them win. Completely, publicly, and then it waits, patient as a spider, for them to put their swords away. For the golden year had come round at last, and it ended the way golden years always end, with everyone believing it could be made to last forever. Hear now what came to pass in Ctesiphon. Naushervan, the man who had feared one boy out of Mecca the whole length of his reign, was old now and tired, and for one astonishing season, sincere. And he did a thing no teller expected of him. He called the court together, and set the crown of the 7 realms not upon his own head, nor upon any Persian prince, but upon a child, upon Qubad, his own grandson and Hamza's son. Think on it. The prophecy that Naushervan had fought for 40 years was not defeated. It was adopted. The 2 bloodlines, the hawks and the kings, were poured into one small boy, and the boy was crowned. And to Mihr, quietly, the old king spoke the saddest wisdom of that whole sweet year. "I fought the hawk 40 years, he said. "Let me at least die its grandfather's friend." And so Naushervan turned toward prayer. Hamza and Mihr Nigar watched their son take a throne beneath the banners of both their houses. And even Baktak, sleek, patient, poisonous Baktak, was made to bow before a king of kings who was half of the house of Hashim. Now let me tell you of this boy, for you must love him quickly. You have only 2 nights. He was a child who wore his great crown crooked. He worshipped his father the way small boys do, from the ankles up. He sparred in the yard with the handle of a champion's mace, too big for his hands, and he ruled with the disarming honesty that only a child king possesses. "Grandfather Vizier Baktak," he asked once before the whole divan, "why do the petitioners fear you so? I shall go and ask them myself." And the court held its breath, and Baktak smiled a smile with no warmth in it at all. And the boy king was tested, as all kings are. For Bahman, do you remember the boy prince of the fortress of Salisil from the Long War? He was a grown man now, and an ambitious one, and he rose against the new order. So the child Qubad rode out to meet him, and Hamza and the rose-coloured horse Ashqar were held back, deliberately, in reserve, watching, and the boy won. He won his first battle before he had grown his first beard, and his father stood in the reserve line prouder than he had ever been of any triumph of his own. Bahman knelt and confessed his fault, and took the faith, and was forgiven, for that was the family's way, mercy handed down to a second generation. But mark this, children, for the boy could not. Bahman rose from his knees and carried his grievance away, and filed it in the one place where you and I can see it, and the child king never could, in his heart. And so the machinery of grief began to turn softly, where nobody was looking, under the crown, behind the smile, inside the family. Now far off in Abyssinia, a raider named Shaddad had been taken and converted and released, and had at once seized the retired old Naushervan and shut him in an iron cage and carried him away. And with the old king caged abroad, and Hamza summoned off to his father's affairs, Baktak reached at last for his masterpiece. He forged a letter, a royal letter, sealed and perfect, and in it was written the lie that Hamza was dead abroad in some distant country, that his followers should be slaughtered, and Mihr Nigar given over in marriage to Bahman. And Baktak dropped this forgery into the two hands most hungry to believe it, into Bahman's, and into the hands of Jopin, that old humiliated suitor, who had wanted Mihr Nigar since before the tale began. And Jopin laid a feast, a banquet, he said, to mourn the anniversary of the death of the late Amir Hamza. And to it he invited the champions, and the young King Qubad, and all the family, to be toasted and taken. The wine, the candles, the smiling guards, a trap dressed as a kindness. And that whole clever machine broke itself against the one thing the villains never thought to reckon with, against Mihr Nigar. She was asked to grace the gathering for the honour of her presence. And she came, and she read the room in a single slow look, the smiles that sat wrong on the faces, the guards too stiff, their boots too new for men who merely serve at feasts. She said nothing, and in the middle of the courses, with nothing but perfect courtesy, she called for her conveyance, and rose, and took the boy king out with her under the cover of good manners. 12 years of nerve, spent in 90 seconds of pure protocol. The trap closed upon empty air, and Jopin, humiliated twice over, threw off all pretense. Open war now, his army and Bahman's and Baktak's gold behind them both. The war pressed the faithful hard, while Hamza was still upon the road home. And then, at a way camp in the dark, Hamza woke with his heart beating wrong in his chest. He did not wait for his escort. He took only Amar, and rode ahead into the night, and came upon the battle as his own line was buckling, and turned it, as he always turned it, by arriving. And out of the crush came Bahman, whom the boy had beaten and the father had pardoned, and he swung a great two-handed sword at the unguarded side of the day and opened Hamza's head to the bone. The blood blinded him. The world tilted, and Bahman did not stay to make sure of his work. He fled the field shouting his boast ahead of him, "I have killed Hamza! I have killed Hamza!" And the boast outran the truth, as boasts always do. And now, children, came the hour the rose-coloured colt had been born for. For Hamza, sliding out of his saddle, bleeding, spoke to his horse in the tongue of the jinns. 2 words only. Son, away. And Ashqar became the whole of the rescue. He fought clear with heel and tooth. He found river crossings no horse should have known. He ran the pursuit off the edge of the night, until the water at his knees ran red, and his rider slid down gently into the shallows. And at first light a poor goatherd found them. Ashqar was his name, unlettered, penniless, and certain of one thing only, that here was a great man, and that he was dying. He carried them to his hut, and washed the terrible wound with what a goatherd has to hand, and Ashqar stood at the door like a beast carved on a king's shield, and let no living thing pass for 7 days, while Hamza lay in the lamplight and mended on goat broth and kindness. And when at last Hamza woke and spoke his own name, It was the goatherd's old mother who answered, pledging the whole service of her house with the fearlessness that only the very poor can afford. Remember them, children. Kings failed him. Converts betrayed him. A goatherd and his mother did not. And Amir was already coming. He read the blood trail across a hostile country as though it were written text, until at last the Zambil bag dropped in a hut doorway, and the king of the Ayars stood looking at his milk brother, alive. And for once in his long, laughing life, Amir made no jest at all. He only sat down in the doorway, like a man whose knees had been dismissed from duty. Then Mihr Nigar came with the army and stood at that humble door, the survivor of 100 terrors, meeting at last the one thing she had feared above all others, and mastering it. The goatherd was rewarded past all his understanding, and Hamza climbed back into the saddle, scar upon scar, and rode to reform his broken line. The war was balanced again. Bahman's boast lay exposed, and the family gathered around one more fire, whole. The boy king asleep against his father's shoulder, his crown set down in the grass. Hold this picture, children. Hold it. For the Dastan now asks of me the 3 pages I have never once read aloud without stopping. Come to me tomorrow all the same. Grief shared around a lamp is grief halved, and he will need us all there. See, I do not put the lamp out tonight. I leave it burning and close the book around the shadow of its flame.